I'll admit it's a catchy title, but let's face it, animals spend much of their time eating, resting, playing, making love, tending to a family, having fights. Gosh, that sounds like my life. We have that opportunity, because of all that activity, to capture terrific photographs of gestures and moments, if we're paying attention and if we understand the behavior of the animals that we're photographing. So first and foremost, study wildlife behavior and become really good at observation and understanding. Learn what they do, when they do it, and how they do it. The more you study animals and birds, the more you'll learn. Repetition in how an elephant brings food to its mouth is going to give you the opportunity to capture many different moments of that action. Knowing how protective zebra are of their offspring can have you recognizing moments like this that express that. These spotted eagle owl chicks, there's only one showing here, are told by mama to stay close to the tree when she goes off to hunt, and they do, and for obvious reasons of camouflage. And we learned from our guide that in the afternoon she will come back and she will shield them from the desert heat, so we got to go back and photograph that. Had we not learned that from the guide, I would have never known that this was another photographic opportunity. Learning that kingfishers like to sit around showing off their catch meant more opportunities to capture the moment. They would beat the fish against the branch, eventually to kill it, and they'd turn it around in their beaks here and there, showing off their prowess. And I thought that's what was happening here with this roadrunner as it strutted around with this lizard in its mouth. And it wasn't eating the catch, and at first I thought, well, this is pretty unusual. And then I began to realize why, when it would lower its head and it would call out softly to its mate nearby. It was trying to draw her out to present her with this gift as part of the whole courtship process. These baboons really like the fruit from the sausage tree. So knowing that, you can seek out areas around those trees for opportunities to photograph the baboons eating. Not necessarily the prettiest photo of a bear, but the salmon roe tells the story, and at least it's not all blood and guts lying about. And these pictures are important nature pictures too. This tells a lovely story, and knowing that the egrets are constantly bringing branches back to the nest, not only during the building of the nest, but throughout the raising of the chicks, gave me plenty of opportunities to get there when the light was great and get the right timing and shutter speed and aperture to pull images off like this. Look for gesture. Gesture is really moment. You're freezing a moment in time in a still image, and it doesn't have to be super action gesture. Any sort of gesture can bring a picture to life. This is the strut unique to secretary birds, the way they kick their legs in the grass to rout out snakes and lizards and so forth as they hunt. And the chameleon strut. Pay attention to leg separation. In looking for gesture, you want to suggest that it's walking, but you want to also capture the best image you can of that by not having legs overlap if you can help it. The way lions walk, they throw out their paw. Grizzly bears do that too. So even this baby lion cub here is doing that same sort of thing, and that gesture tells a story about the animal walking. I have many pictures of these moose walking along the edge of the water, and I just finally got one that I felt really worked for the right timing with all of the legs and the splash. So you have to take a lot when you're photographing motion and gesture. These African jacanas walk on lily pads and reed mats on the water surface, and their feet are so unusual that enable them to do that. So it's really important in the gesture that you show that foot. Heavy-bodied birds like pelicans take a lot of effort to get off the water, and so I had an opportunity to watch this one as it was attempting to get lift. And I loved the final image right before it finally broke free from the water. It looks like a ballerina dancing. Certain birds like to hover when they're looking down for their prey. This track-chat and kites and a lot of hawks will hover as they're searching for prey beneath them. It's a unique opportunity to get a gesture of the bird in flight. And sandhill cranes like to squawk while they're flying. So yes, it's trying to get a good wing position and sharpness on the bird and a high shutter speed and the right aperture and all of that is important. But also watch for that moment when they open their mouths and squawk, because that adds something special. These spur fowls are like quails here in the USA. They will become a scout on a high point and they will call out if there's any danger. And they'll also do this, of course, to call for mates. Knowing that, like us, many animals stretch after a nap, I was ready for this grizzly bear when it woke up and gave that stretch. And we anthropomorphize with animals, but tell me that this bear isn't enjoying this good stretch. That tiny hand, to me, is the gesture, hanging on to mom while it nursed. And we all know what is happening here. And it's at the end of that act where lions will bare their teeth and growl and look so ferocious at each other. But these are repeatable moments if you come on a mating couple. And what did I say about eat, play, love? Capturing eating moments like these can be gruesome, but to a nature photographer, it's raw nature, no pun intended, and that's all part of the story. The gesture is getting just the right amount of teeth showing and that lip that's pushed up that suggests that it's trying to gnaw off a piece. And the gesture here is the tug on the sinewy flesh. We can't see the point of her suckling, but we see enough to know what's going on. And we know by this gesture that this sea lion has straightened out its throat and it's down the hatch with half a fish. This is what I call the beg. And the low angle really helps bring that out because we can see the cub's eyes looking up at mom. What we can't know is that there's a begging sound that goes with this. And this is the hug. Again, a low angle above the water gives you that intimate view. Gestures are sometimes quieter ones. There's no obvious outstretched paw or facial expression here, but we get it, we feel it. There's nothing cuter than baby animals play fighting. But when you're watching for the gestures in these moments, watch that they're not merging too much together. Sometimes it's the best shot is right before they're making contact, that anticipation, that tension, and keep that shutter speed high to freeze the motion. I didn't understand this gesture at first, but I thought it was cool. I thought it was shading the water surface for hunting like black herons do, but it turns out that they were doing this on land too. And then I learned that it kills the parasites in their feathers. Who knew? But research and asking questions taught me about this bird's behavior. So anticipating those moments of gesture is another really important thing when you're photographing wildlife. And that means paying attention to sounds, sights, even smells, and not chatting about last night's ball game with your photo partners. Ouch, that has to hurt. At least it looks like it would. By knowing that these dogs, wild dogs, like to play, just like a lot of other animals, I could see when the play fighting was about to happen, they would posture and there was a certain amount of gesture and then came the lunge. All you can do is watch and stay focused on just one bear. If there's a bunch of bear fishing in the stream, you can't be on all of them. You just have to stay with one and wait for that bear to get lucky. And so all creatures, great and small, are busy living life. This gecko is really cool. It lives underground during the day and comes out in the dusk and the early morning twilight hours to hunt. It's got big eyes so that it can see at night, but it doesn't do well during the day. When our guide found one for us, he said, "You're only going to have a few moments to photograph it when I put it down on the sand again." And he was right. We had a few moments, and then it started digging its burrow to go back underground. And I liked that gesture. Watching animals run and knowing that many animals in the antelope family like to break into leaping or pronking behavior means that I can be ready to anticipate the moment when it might take into the air. I watched this Bonaparte's gull just floating along the river, watching salmon eggs that had broken free and were traveling downstream, and it would plunge its head underneath and come up, sometimes with the salmon egg in its mouth. Can't tell you how many I took of this before I got one that I really liked. We can't always anticipate every moment, but if we're paying attention, we have better odds. I heard the squawking of the gull, and I had my lens in my hand, and I saw this movement coming from up behind the rock, just like a flurry, and I lifted instinctively, and I managed to get one image of this gull that was squawking and fighting off a young peregrine that had actually attacked and gotten the gull's chick. I learned that right before the geese lift off, they go absolutely silent. So there's a cacophony of sound, and suddenly dead silent, and then they erupt into a mass liftoff. So paying attention really helps. If you have a hydrophone, you'll hear the singer who calls out and orchestrates the bubble net feeding. They suddenly stop right before the whales break the surface with their mouths open. If you don't have a hydrophone, you can still watch the water surface and you can begin to see the swell, but they don't always emerge even close to where they last went down, so that can be a lot harder. If you watch a bird on a branch long enough, they might do something interesting. And we needed this lilac-breasted roller to do just that, to show off its beautiful colors. These are both ungulants, so they posed no threat to each other, and there were a lot of young giraffes wandering about, and they were curious, but wanting to stay far enough away. And I spotted this one heading towards the zebra, perhaps to put the zebra between us and the giraffe. But when they all turned to look, that was the moment. Stay on the action. Follow it through until you really know it's fallen apart. I saw this cub grab her leg. The lioness's teeth started to bare. The next shot, she was really voicing her displeasure, and that response was building. And then in the final one, she was turning, and I thought there would be more, and there wasn't. But I'm happy with those last two images. So by staying on it and photographing the sequence, you'll often achieve the peak moment in one of those frames, if not several. So in summary, learn behavior. Look for gestures and anticipate those moments. And above all, have fun out there. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned a lot from this.